The Empire had conquered 17 star systems in less than 100 cycles. Their warships moved through the galaxy like a disease, consuming everything in their path. They were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. Their eyes were black as the void between stars. They believed themselves to be the most powerful species in the known universe. Every civilization they encountered had either surrendered or been destroyed. There was no third option. When the scouts first detected the signals coming from a small spiral arm of the galaxy, they dismissed them as primitive noise. The signals were messy, unorganized, and broadcast on frequencies that any advanced species would consider outdated. The High Command laughed at the reports. Whatever species lived in that region of space was clearly not worth their attention. But curiosity got the better of Commander, a decorated military leader who had never lost a battle. He decided to send a small fleet of 5 warships to investigate. It would be a simple reconnaissance mission. Perhaps they would find resources worth taking. Perhaps they would find another weak civilization to add to their empire. The 5 warships jumped into the outer edge of human space on a cold morning in February, Earth time. They emerged near a small mining colony on the moon of a gas giant. The colony was home to 3,000 humans who spent their days extracting rare minerals from the frozen rock. The ships immediately began scanning the colony. They detected the humans moving about their daily routines, completely unaware of the alien presence above them. Commander smiled. This would be easy. A communication signal reached the flagship. It was in a language they had never heard before, but their translation systems quickly decoded it. The message was simple and direct. Unknown vessels, you have entered sovereign human space. Identify yourselves immediately and state your intentions. You have 30 minutes to respond. This is your only warning. Commander found this amusing. These primitive creatures were giving him a warning. He had conquered species with technology far more advanced than these humans possessed. Their little mining colony had no visible weapons, no defensive shields, and no warships nearby. They were completely defenseless. He decided to ignore the message. Let them wait. Let them understand that they did not answer to anyone. 30 minutes passed. Nothing happened. Commander laughed and ordered his ships to move closer to the colony. He wanted to see the fear in the humans' eyes before he destroyed them. Another message came through. This one was different. It was not a warning. It was not a threat. It was simply a statement of fact. Hostile intent confirmed. Engaging defense protocol. Before Commander could even process these words, the space around his fleet erupted in fire. From the surface of the gas giant's moon, hidden weapons platforms rose from beneath the ice. They had been invisible to sensors, buried deep under the frozen surface. Now they were very much visible, and they were firing. The first ship exploded in a ball of flame. The second followed moments later. Commander screamed orders at his crew, demanding they raise shields and return fire. But the human weapons were unlike anything he had ever seen. They cut through shields like they were made of paper. In less than 5 minutes, 4 of the 5 warships had been reduced to burning wreckage. Only the flagship remained, and it was badly damaged. Commander ordered an immediate retreat. His ship barely managed to jump away before another volley of fire could finish them off. When the damaged flagship limped back to space, Commander immediately reported to the High Command. He told them everything. He told them about the hidden weapons, about the speed of the human response, about the power of their technology. He begged them to leave the humans alone. The High Command did not listen. They had never retreated from any enemy. They had never shown weakness. To do so now would be unthinkable. Instead, they assembled a war fleet of 100 ships. This was the largest military force that had ever deployed against a single enemy. They would crush these humans and make an example of them. The war fleet entered human space 3 weeks later. This time, they did not go to a small mining colony. They went straight for a planet called Mars, which their intelligence suggested was a major human military installation. As soon as they arrived, they received another message. This one came from a human who identified himself as Admiral of the United Earth Defense Force. "Vessels, you have entered human space with hostile intent. We gave you one warning when you attacked our mining colony. We told you that we do not give warnings twice. You chose not to listen. That was a mistake you will not live to regret." The space around Mars came alive. Ships emerged from behind the planet's 2 moons, from hidden stations in the asteroid belt, from jump points that they had not even known existed. There were hundreds of them. Some were small and fast, darting through space like angry insects. Others were massive battleships, bristling with weapons that glowed with barely contained energy. The fleet found itself surrounded. Commander, who had been given a second chance by the High Command, felt his stomach drop. This was not what they had expected. The humans were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to be easy to conquer. The battle lasted 3 hours. It was not really a battle. It was a massacre. Human ships moved with a coordination that they could not match. They seemed to know what they would do before they did it. Their weapons fired with perfect accuracy, striking critical systems with surgical precision. They tried to retreat, but the humans had blocked every escape route. When it was over, 97 ships had been destroyed. 3 had been captured, including Commander's flagship. The humans had lost 12 ships. Commander was brought before Admiral in chains. The human was smaller than he had expected, with gray hair and tired eyes. But there was something in those eyes that made blood run cold. It was not anger. It was not hatred. It was something far more terrifying. It was indifference. "Your empire attacked our people," Admiral said calmly. "We gave you a warning. We told you to identify yourselves and state your intentions. You ignored us. You tried to destroy our colony. You killed innocent miners who had done nothing wrong." Wanted to speak, to explain, to beg for mercy. But his translator had been damaged in the battle, and he could not form the words. Admiral continued, "Humanity has learned many hard lessons throughout our history. We have fought wars among ourselves that killed millions. We have seen what happens when warnings are ignored, when diplomacy fails, when peaceful intentions are mistaken for weakness. We decided long ago that we would never make those mistakes again." The Admiral stood and walked to a window that looked out into space. The wreckage of the fleet drifted in the distance, illuminated by the cold light of distant stars. "We give one warning, only one. If that warning is ignored, we do not negotiate, we do not threaten, we do not give speeches or make demands. We simply act. Your empire attacked us twice. The first time we let one ship escape so that you could deliver our message. You chose to ignore it. Now there is no fleet left to threaten us." Finally found his voice. "What will you do with me, with my people?" Admiral turned back to face him. "We are not like you. We do not conquer. We do not enslave. We will return you to your empire with a message for your leaders. Tell them what you saw here. Tell them that human space is not to be entered with hostile intent. Tell them that we have given our warning. There will not be another." The commander was released 2 weeks later. A human ship carried him to the border of space and let him go. He traveled for days until he reached the... When he arrived, he demanded an immediate audience with the High Command. The leaders of the Empire listened to his report in silence. They watched the recordings from his ship's sensors. They saw the speed and power of the human response. They saw their mighty fleet reduced to rubble in hours. They saw the face of Admiral as he delivered his cold, simple message. When finished speaking, there was a long silence. Finally, the eldest member of the High Command, who had lived for over 300 cycles, spoke. "We have conquered 17 star systems," he said slowly. "We have never encountered a species like this. They do not boast. They do not threaten. They simply tell you what will happen and then they make it happen. This is not a species we can defeat. This is not a species we should challenge." The High Command made a decision that day. The Empire would never enter human space again. They would not trade with humans. They would not communicate with humans. They would simply pretend that humans did not exist. Word spread through the galaxy about what had happened. Other species, some of whom had been planning their own invasions of human space, quietly abandoned those plans. The message was clear. Humanity was not a species to be trifled with. Years passed. The humans continued to expand, building colonies and outposts throughout their region of space. They traded with peaceful species. They shared technology with those who approached them with respect. They were kind to those who showed them kindness. But they remained vigilant. Deep beneath the surfaces of their worlds, weapons platforms waited in silence. In hidden stations throughout their territory, warships stood ready to deploy at a moment's notice. And in the hearts of every human who looked up at the stars, there was a quiet understanding. The universe was dangerous. There would always be species like the who saw kindness as weakness, who mistook warnings for empty threats. Humanity had learned this lesson long ago, written in the blood of millions who had died throughout their long and violent history. They would extend their hand in friendship to anyone who approached them peacefully, but they would never forget that the same hand could close into a fist, and when that fist struck, it struck only once. Admiral retired 5 years after the battle. He spent his remaining days on a small farm on Earth, growing vegetables and watching the sunset. Sometimes, young officers would visit him, asking for advice. He always told them the same thing. Be kind, be generous, be willing to forgive, but never ever make a threat you are not willing to carry out, and never give a warning twice. Because the moment you do, your enemies will know that your words mean nothing. The empire eventually collapsed, torn apart by internal conflicts and the resentment of the species they had conquered. But the lesson they had learned from humanity survived. It spread through the galaxy, passed from species to species, a simple truth that everyone came to understand. Humans were not the strongest species in the universe. They were not the most advanced, but they were perhaps the most honest. When they said something, they meant it. When they gave a warning, they kept their word. And that, in a galaxy full of liars and cheats and empty threats, made them more dangerous than any empire. The stars continued to burn. The universe continued to spin. And somewhere in a small spiral arm of the galaxy, humanity continued to watch the darkness with patient, steady eyes, ready to welcome any friend, ready to destroy any enemy, ready to do whatever was necessary to protect their own. Because they had learned long ago that peace was not given, it was earned. And sometimes the price of peace was the willingness to wage war.